been trying to use extra constitutional means to get into government, and that we have refused.
Mr. Ruto, let me interrupt you there for a second, sir. Allow me to interrupt you just for 1 minute. That is not quite an answer to my question. I was asking you, how can you say this election was free and fair? 12 million people chose to or felt they could not vote. Election officials, election observers stayed in their hotels. We saw riots, looting, arson. We saw civilians being killed.
For the record again, contrary to what you have said, on the 8th of August, 15 million, 78% of Kenyans stand up to vote. In this election, 40% of Kenyans have turned up to vote. It was the intention of the opposition that no Kenyan showed up to vote. To their dismay, 7.6 million Kenyans woke up early and went to vote.
But even if all those people, had decided to vote, allow me to interrupt you again, sir. Even if all those people had decided to vote and they had gone to the polling booths, they could not have voted because election officials put in place by the Electoral Commission were not there. The materials to vote were not on location. I am talking to you, if you have the correct information about this location, of 7.6 million people who actually voted. I am not talking about those who did not manage to vote. There is 9% of Kenyans, about 1.8 million, who did not vote. And those people who did not vote, they didn't manage to vote because of violence. Violence that is sponsored by Mr. Odinga in his region. In fact, he organized militia that stopped citizens from accessing polling stations. He organized militia to stop IEBC officials, electoral material from getting to polling station, except for two constituencies where election material got to the polling stations and citizens voted. Okay.
In about 3,000
in a country where the population is 19.6 million. Let me finish. In a country where the population is 19.6 million, should you not, can I suggest to you, be actually talking about the 12 million people who did not vote as opposed to the 7.2 million people who did vote?
The correct statistic is when all the candidates were there on the 8th of August, 15 million Kenyans voted. In this election, 7.6 million Kenyans voted. Those who did not vote were asked to boycott the election by the opposition. It is a choice that citizens make. In Kenya, it is not mandatory for anybody to vote. It is a choice that you make. You choose to vote or you choose not to vote. What we are against is Mr. Odinga's use of militia and violence to stop citizens from exercising their democratic constitutional right. And he succeeded in a very small section of Kenya. That is only 9% of Kenya. He managed to stop citizens from voting.
12 million people, sir, not casting a vote is not a small percentage of the country. And you also have a bigger problem here, surely. Before this rerun of the presidential election, the chief of your electoral commission said he was unsure in his heart whether the rerun would be free and fair. And he could not possibly have predicted the scenes of near riots that we saw on the streets. We carried those pictures live on this channel. For your information, the same gentleman you're talking about, as I talk to you in this studio now, is presiding over the conclusion of the election results at the Bomas at the National Tallying Center. He subsequently had a meeting with the opposition leader. He subsequently had a meeting with the president and myself, and he subsequently satisfied himself that all security arrangements were in place
in 90% of the country. In fact, in the whole country, except in the areas that Mr. Odinga managed to sponsor militia that stopped election officials from accessing polling stations and allowing citizens to vote.
Arguably, Mr. Odinga.
Mtazamaji, basi naarifiwa kwamba utaweza kupata mahojiano yote kamili mwendo wa saa 3. Kwa hivyo usisite kujumuika na mwenzangu Hussein Mohamed. Tutapumzika kidogo alafu tutarejea na taarifa zaidi.